Hello, everyone, and welcome to the paddock. In today's episode, we bring you our predictions for the F3 championship ahead of Monza, which is it's the season finale of this 2024 F3 season. So our beloved editor gave us a quick rundown of the seven-way fight. Thoughts on that?
It's definitely been exciting. It's not as straightforward as maybe F2 and F1 right now, which is really nice to see. Looking at the numbers, because to be honest, when he brought it up, I was like, yeah, it's just the top five, we're good. And then he's like, no, it's the top seven. I was like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's not,
And
my brain couldn't compute for a hot second.
no, and looking at this before we started recording, I was like, what? Are we gonna cover this? But, all right, let's get to it, shall we?
All right, so the top seven in the championship and the one who are most likely to win is our leader, Fornaroli, and second is Minnie, third is Browning, fourth is Lindblad, fifth is Beganovich, sixth is Mansell, and in seventh is Goter. I probably butchered that. I apologize to every person.
All right, let's start off in chronological order with the Sakir sprint. For
Hmm.
Fenroli, he scored 8 points. Mini scored four. Browning was pointless. Lindblad scored 10. Beganovic and Mansell were both pointless in that sprint race. And Goethe, which I think it's pronounced, scored 2 points.
And then we have, of course, the feature race. Fornaroli with 15, Mini with 12, Browning winning with 25, Lindblad with 14, Beganovich with 2, Mansell with 18, and Gother with 3.
On to Melbourne, we have Fornaroli on 37, Mini on 32. We have another 47 for Browning, 26 for Lindblad, 35 for Beganovic, 20 for Mansell, 11 for Goethe.
Mm-hmm. Following Imola, it was 52 to Fornaroli, 45 to Mini, 49 to Browning, 32 for Arvlad, or Lindblad, excuse me, 45 for Beganovich, 20 for Mansell, and 41 for Ghoster.
Okay, we have
Monaco.
Monaco. Okay, Monaco 54 for Fornaroli, 45 for Mini, 49 for Browning, 32 for Lindblad, 45 for Beganovic, 20 for Mansell, 41 for Goethe.
And that's, of course, following the sprint. I mean, I mean, we don't have to go through all the numbers here because there's a lot, and trying to focus on them right now is
Hmm.
a little much for my brain to process. But looking at the numbers, looking at the spread, definitely a little bit, you could see where they were better at one track than the other,
Hmm.
in terms of car setup and things like that. Definitely the most consistent being, I want to say, our top four in terms of points, as they definitely scored the most consistent and making, I think, almost scoring every round, at least in one of the races. Like if they didn't score in the sprint, they scored in the feature race. If they didn't score in the feature race, they scored in the sprint.
Yeah.
So it's definitely it, looking at the numbers, it definitely makes it seem a lot, puts it in perspective of how close it is this season. Because I one point I want to say it seemed like it was Minnie and Brownings for the taking, especially towards like the Silverstone weekend. And then you had Lindblad coming back in where he was sitting comfortably in third. but then Budapest didn't work out for Budapest, and Spa were not kind to Lindblad. It's a consistency thing. In my opinion, out of these, it is between the top three. As it stands, it's 29 to Fornaroli, it's 28 or 129 to Fornaroli, 128 to Minnie, 123 for Browning, 111 for Lindblad, 100 for Bogdanovich, 97 for Mansell, and 94 for Gother. So if Minnie, Browning, and Fornaroli all score in the points in both the sprint and the feature race, I don't see any below the top three pulling out or pulling it off. It still can happen. Monza has been known to be difficult for them,
Mm.
especially last year with Bogdanovich. I believe he was leading and then he did end up crashing out with I forget who at that point.
Well, Monza isn't really the gentlest of tracks. The weather can also play a big role there. So it can be sunny, it can rain, it can
It is
be,
the
yeah,
temple of speed, and if you are not, and because it's so fast, you do have consequences when you mess up.
they have a lot of tight turns and slopes and stuff like that. So the temple of speed indeed.
But looking at, so we were also given a graph by our lovely editor, which is fantastic. It's a lot easier to digest everything. And looking at it, it seems like Ford Oroli has been since Barcelona to Silverstone, it was a little bit of a lull for him. But then after Silverstone, he just kind of found the car again
hmm.
and started being more consistent.
Yeah, and there have been quite a few races since then, so there have been point scoring moments for him, and not only him, but also Lindblad as well. I think he also had a very good few races after
Yep.
Silverstone.
I mean, after Silverstone, he kind of lulled. He definitely stayed. Like Silverstone was, he won the feature race. I believe he also won the sprint, right?
I don't know, but what
I
I do
don't.
know is that winning both races gives you a grand total of 35 points. So if he got that, he won both.
I think so. I think it. Yeah, if the math is correct, he won both, and I'm pretty sure I watched him win both. I can't. It's been a long summer break.
Yeah, and of course, if any of you listening know this, feel free to send it to us.
But yeah, it's not impossible for Lindblad to take it. He's probably the best out of the tops four, like out of the bottom four, in my opinion, to do it. Just because he is the closest. He's only behind the leader, he's only 18 behind. So he would need to have Minnie and Browning not, he would have to finish above Minnie and Browning, but also
And they
have,
can't score, so that's also a factor.
yeah. And I mean, the thing with Lindblad is just his past couple qualifyings have just not gone to plan, and then he tries to make it through the pack, and it kind of just, it doesn't work out for him.
Yeah, and I don't really think the Red Bull system treats him too well in that regard. They have a lot of drivers in a lot of different series, so I think they kind of want to focus on the F2 drivers, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's not for him. I think this is his first season in F3. So for him to be in the hunt is promising. Again, if I had to be a betting person, if you are, this is probably what our editor is asking, but if you're asking me to choose right now out of all these seven, who I think will take it this weekend, I don't know. I'm indecisive. Uh, I'll put my money on Minnie.
Right. Well, I'll probably put it on Fornaroli or something like that for the sake of consistency.
I mean, Minnie's also in a prima, So
Mm.
that's kind of also my logic with it. And
Well, then again, that doesn't really seem to help his case.
it's a toss-up. I could wake up tomorrow and be like, oh, I think Browning's gonna win.
Right.
Like, for me, the top three, it's a toss-up. Like, I'm not saying Lindblad or Bogdanovich or Mansler or Go Gother couldn't win, but if you're looking at the point score, looking at just looking at graphs, looking at even just watching past races, just highlights quickly before coming on, I think consistency in terms of where they are qualifying, where they are finishing races, how they're going through the field.
Mm.
I think for me, Mini has that more consistency of going through that, even if he qualifies a little lower.
Once again, well, not once again, but to quote the great George Russell, consistency is key. One of the reasons we are covering this is because, yes, we do cover F1, but we also cover F2 and 3 and so on. And we have a plethora of good drivers across all of the series that we cover.
Yeah. And F3 I feel like doesn't get like it's shown people watch it, but because either one it's on really early for people to like for me, I'm in the States, it's on at like 2 in the morning most times.
Yeah.
So like just trying to get as much just allowing people to understand what's happening in the lower series, who's to look out for, what is going on. I know a little once F2 happens, like it's a little bit more easy because it's a smaller grid and there's not as many teams. But
Mm.
it is true to it's I mean, people want a championship race. There are 32 drivers, 33 drivers
30.
in 30 drivers in F3, and we have a seven-way fight for the lead.
Mm.
Not saying that I don't want F1 not to have a championship race, but I'm like the lower series do offer if people want that close championship racing and actually want a title fight, you just gotta look you kind of have to just look at the lower divisions. They're still incredible drivers, talented drivers. They're still driving at fast, consistent speeds that I would love to do, but no, I can't do. So I I think yes, we are covering it more towards the end of the season. And once Monza happens, we'll have a full breakdown of the season and everything like that. But
Mm.
definitely go back and watch this season. I think there are a lot of young talent that will eventually make it to the grid from this, at least from the grid, but also this top seven.
Yeah, I've heard the likes of Mini it's been thrown in, Bogdanovich as well. Luke Browning has also been mentioned as a future prospect for F2. So I think any of those would be good for F2 championship.
Hmm.
I'm not saying that F2 is bad because it isn't. It's very entertaining. But I do think that any of those would make it even more interesting because they starve for points, they starve for competition, they want to win, they want to win with a fight, they want to score points regularly, they want to get podiums, pole positions, everything. So I think if you add those three in, then I think, yeah, it would be fun.
If it is to be rumored, there are at least, well, there's at least one seat in Prima Racing that is open because Ollie, and if rumors are to be believed, there will be both of those seats open, and I
Hmm.
mean it's only two of the three F3 Prema drivers who are in the top seven are will have the chance to go to those seats. If you're asking me to predict who's going in those seats, that might be that more depends on the driver academies, I think. But I think if if we're putting an arm behind my back, I would say it's probably going to be Mini and Bogdanovich just because of Alpine and Ferrari.
Yeah, those are proven to be strong academies and good ties to have in the feeder series. Well, looking at what was announced last week with Jack Doohan to Alpine, I think that was the right choice for them to make. They get a good driver. They get a driver that hasn't driven for a season. He is probably very excited and
Yeah.
very hungry for good results.
And I forget who I was listening to, but they made a good point about like because I feel like some people are like, why is Jack getting? I know we're kind of going a little haywire, but it was announced. And some people were like not sure of Jack getting the seat. And I forget who I was listening to about it, but they were like, I think we were spoiled. I think it might have been P1 to be fair, but we've been kind of spoiled with the amount of champions that have been basically promoted quickly from F winning F2 to F1 that sometimes they do get the ones that were more consistent because he did come in FP3 in his season, if I'm correct with that.
Yeah, I think that was the case.
Like
And to
he
be fair, he did have a good season last year, so I can't really fault him for not being good.
Yeah, I mean, he's won races. Scored consistency. I think if I'm correct, it was more like car issues that brought him down in the end. I don't think I don't think I remember seeing or hearing about him do any crashes or anything like that. So, I mean, it just goes to show that even if you don't win your series, if you are consistent and you can show you can win, you can show you have racecraft in the lower series, and I think that this championship in F3 is showing that these top seven, yes, they haven't always won a race, but they've been consistent enough in showing racecraft and showing that they can but also have wins. I think that's more what the feeder series are supposed to be. Yes, you do get your diamonds in the rough like Charles Leclerc, like Oscar Piastri, like George Russell, like you do get them.
Well, you also get people like Lando Norris from that, of course, and he is also a proven driver. He has a lot of podiums to his name and a singular win, but a deserving one at that.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I think that is also an example of what you're saying.
we want to throw somebody who's great on the grid. Look at Nico Hulkenberg. Yes, he hasn't scored a podium, but if you look back at his junior series, he won so many times. I think I think him not winning or being on a podium is very much down to who he was driving with. But I think the past couple seasons we have been spoiled with just the amount of talent
Yep.
about who's winning.
Yeah, if we were to go to like F2 last season, we had Theo Porcher, which only had one win in the series that year, but nevertheless, he managed to win the championship.
I mean, in my opinion, yes, wins are important. To show you can win a race in both F3 and F2 are important, but I feel like consistency is more what teams are looking for when they're trying to figure out which young talent to bring up.
If we were to toss someone in, I would probably say that Mercedes did a little blunder with Andrea Antonelli and his jump up to F2 from Freca, but that's just my opinion.
I mean, to be fair, they're doing the opposite what Verstappen did. Like Verstappen went from F3 to F1. They're deciding to just skip F3 and put him in F2.
But well, the Verstappen F2 skip paid off.
Yeah, and that's what Mercedes ho again, this is all speculation. By the time this comes out, it could be announced that he's in the seat. So we hope and cross our fingers that we get this out before an announcement is made. But
Hmm.
it will be interesting to see what will happen. I mean, I don't know who else goes in that seat now, unless Max does sign, but I don't see Max leaving.
No, that's probably a good assessment. He has a long-term deal with Red Bull, and he has called Red Bull his second family, and Milton Keynes a second home and stuff like that. So I think he has cemented his place in Red Bull. I think part of Red Bull's success comes from him.
Well, in the new era, yes.
Uh,
We are not gonna talk about we are not saying that Max Verstappen is like the whole reason why Red Bull is
no, not at
Red
all.
Bull's.
But
Yeah, but
if
there might be some people who are like just throwing that out there.
Okay, I'll throw another scenario into the mix. Okay, let's say that Verstappen wins the 2024 and 25 championships, making him a six-time champion. And if he also were to win in 2026, under the new regulations, then he would be a seven-time champion.
Oh God, don't
So,
do this. Don't do this.
so
We're not. I don't
if
want to.
if that were to happen, will that fulfill the prophecy?
I think he has to win eight. I think he has to be the first one to win eight.
Uh,
If he can win from now, if he can win each championship from now until his contract ends, I think that does that. I don't want to say it because I feel like a certain fan base might come after me. But if somehow Red Bull can get, because I think next year bold. I'm already gonna say this now. I think next year Max doesn't win. I don't know who will win, but I don't think Max will win. I think it will be tight. I think Max will be top three or four because I think it's maybe top five. No, I'm gonna say top five. I think there's five drivers that it's between.
right,
But I don't know if he'll be first.
right. Let's say that. Uh,
I love how we've talked about a championship. We have discussed the topic, don't worry, but we have gone on the tangent.
Championships galore. My point was that the Antonelli F2 campaign isn't really paying off.
I mean, he's been more consistent than Behrman, and Behrman has a seat. I'm
Yep,
not this is
but
not me. Yeah.
the point of that is that Behrman had a very good season last year in F2. He placed sixth overall, so you can't really slander him too much.
No, and I'm not trying to slander him. I if you want to I think, and this is where I'll be devil's advocate. I think that neither of them are doing well,
Right,
but I think that's more due to Prema not getting around the concept of the new cars.
right, right. That particular argument can be used for very many teams. It can't really be used for Campus or Rodin or any of those teams, but it can be used for the former frontrunners like ART, Prema, and
Yeah.
Invicta to some extent. I'm not saying that Invicta is a bad team because they aren't. They are a very good team, but they haven't really gotten to grips with how the car is functioning.
Yeah. And that's why I say I'm like, I don't slander or not slander. I don't mind Antonelli going to Mercedes if Prema had gotten the car right. I think he could have had a season like Oscar last year or 2 years ago. Two? Yes, 2 years ago. Two, three? I don't remember.
He won on his first attempt,
Yeah,
so
20.
3 seasons ago.
Yeah, okay. So that's what I believe. I think that's what if you are to believe the rumors and everything about his like testing in an actual F1 car, I see him having that type of season maybe, but I don't know if he would have won the championship. I think it would have been close between I think both Behrman and him would have been higher up in the standings and it would have been more of a I think we went going into next race, if Prema was there, I think we would be looking at a fight like this. Like it would be like the top 7 drivers in F2 right now. Whereas right now it's kind of more of a three-way race with one horse taking it a little bit.
It's gone very stagnant over the past like 2 or 3 races, but I'm not saying the races are bad. I'm not gonna say that. I'm just saying that the same positions are being maintained, and we will probably see that up until Lusail or possibly Abu Dhabi in
Yeah.
F2, but who knows?
Definitely F2, there's been a lot more car issues, mechanical issues.
Mm.
So I think it's still kind of up in the air because just no reliability in the cars themselves have been an issue. So I'm not saying that championship is over and done with, but it looks a little bit more after Spa, it definitely looked a little bit more wrapped of who could possibly win.
Yep. And it'll be fun to see at Monza who will win.
As we've stated, it's we just come on here to talk about how we feel and what we think, and we could be completely wrong in the end.
Hopefully this doesn't age too badly, but
I mean, watch Mansell like come back and win. Watch like the top 4 crash out and like Mansell or Bogdanovich win. Like that is literally what can happen. Like
oh,
I don't know how to pick. Yes, I'm a little bit more leaning towards like the top 3, but anything can happen in those 2 races that I'm like I don't no.
yeah, it'll be fun nevertheless.
It'll be worth waking up for at 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yeah, I think it's at 9 in the morning for me, but
You're 6 hours ahead of me, buddy.
I know,
But
9 or 10 in the morning.
I think that concludes our prediction for who will win. And we added a little sprinkling of some other opinions we've had in there, but
Mm.
we cover it all. We cover it all.
Yep. Of course, there are things that we can probably cover that don't necessarily belong to the F1 ladder, like the Macau Grand Prix, or probably some standalone races that we can cover.
But we will see who takes the title, the crown. Most likely whoever wins will be seeing in F2, but we will wait and see.
Indeed. Of course, we will be back for Azerbaijan, middle of the month, so stay tuned for that.
And of course we'll cover Monza. We will be here after that, but feel free to find us on our socials, drop us who you think will win. You can even tell us if you can especially tell me if my opinion's just washed. I don't have an issue with that.
And the same goes for me as well. You can be brutally honest about both our opinions, and if this doesn't age well, we know that, so no need to tell us that.
I mean, they probably still will, but that's okay.
Yeah. But still, if this ages horrendously, like I just said, there is absolutely no need to tell us that it has, but accept the fact that we know.
We know our opinions our wheel knowledge is just there, and we have none.
We have little to no wheel knowledge.
We just have wacky opinions that we come onto the interwebs and spew for all to hear.
Yeah, we just throw out opinions in the wild.
I mean, most people do. What are you gonna expect?
I don't know.
But yeah, feel free to give us a like, comment, let us know what you think, who you think will win. But I think that does it for today. We look forward to watching the races.
Hmm.
And look forward for our reviews on Monza. Jesus, I can't speak. Coming out later this week.
We'll see you then.
Have a good one.